You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course, the king of all, those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I ever had, probably be the best you ever had as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner at 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Of course, we have to give a nice round of applause for everybody just because. And let's face it, those are great steaks. All right, a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on TV, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television and Hotel TV across this wonderful country of ours. We have a very special guest, which is our regular hockey experts. And he's going to tell you all about himself right now.
Well, I thought I missed my cue. I apologize, Sal. But yeah, I am the former 32-year NHL referee, a little bit of supervising, and now I'm the rules analyst on ESPN. So for all your hockey fans out there, you watch ESPN Hockey, either linear on ESPN, ABC, or streaming on ESPN Plus. Any games that we produce, any controversy, you'll see me, and hopefully I can answer all your questions, and I can hopefully make you more knowledgeable about the rules and a bigger hockey fan. That's my goal.
All right, that's good stuff. And so Dave's been with us for a minute, and let's face it, folks, when we think about hockey rules, there are some obscure rules that people wouldn't even imagine that occur. And the one thing that stands out to me, and we were talking about this before the show started, and that was the proverbial, have you ever seen a goalie cross the checkered red and participate in a play? And now, according to the rules, it's a penalty if a goaltender deliberately participates in the play in a manner when they are beyond the center red line, and a minor penalty is assessed. Have you ever seen this? Have you ever assessed one of those penalties in the past? Tell me about your experience with it.
Well, never assessed one, but funny you ask, because it happened last week in the NHL. There was a delayed penalty, so it was second period, so it's a long change, and the goaltender had to cross center ice to get to his bench for the extra attacker. Just as he crosses the bench, guess what? The puck comes right to him. So what's he do? Puts his stick down, makes a sweet pass to a teammate, maybe hoping to get an assist, but rightfully so, the referees killed the play, and there went the team's power play chances because he was assessed a minor penalty for playing the puck across center ice. Can't do that. Now, I'm not sure what the genesis of the rule is, because I read a book not too long ago about the history of the Stanley Cup, and going way back to the turn of the century in 1800 and 1900, goalies regularly used to skate the length of the ice. They'd go up and down and get involved. I think in modern game, I think the fact that goaltender is not a fair game. You can't body check a goaltender. Incidental contact's permitted, but you can't knock a goalie down. You can't put your shoulder into him. So I think the powers that be decided it'd be kind of unfair to have a guy with a lot of padding in the offensive zone protecting the puck, keep spinning around. There's no way you can get it off him. You can't hit him. You can't bump him. You get a penalty. So I think for equity of the game, they said you got to stay in your half of the ice. That would be my guess.
Well, you know, we think about the old Marty Brodeur rule, right? That's why we have this trapezoid in the first place. But the trapezoid, for everybody that doesn't know what that is, give everybody the 30-second on why it exists and what is it.
Well, back in the day, goalies could come out anywhere they wanted, play the puck, and move it to a teammate. And in the, I guess it's the early 2000s, they wanted to try and increase offense. And what was happening was you get guys like Marty Brodeur, who was so good with the puck, that he was like a third defenseman. The puck would get dumped in, the team would forecheck to go and try and get it. Marty would get the puck behind the net, and he'd come out, he'd go into the corner and get the puck. And he'd make this great one pass breakout, and teams back out down the ice, just effectively shutting down the attacking team that was coming at him to try and, score a goal. So I guess they decided, listen, we'll let the goalie go behind the net and play the puck, but the trapezoid's there. It's about 6 feet on either side of the net. Trapezoid, we all know what a trapezoid looks like, but goaltender can't go into that area. I take it back. The goaltender is only allowed into that area to play the puck. If he leaves that trapezoid area, so, for example, to go into the corners, he receives a minor penalty. He must play the puck above the goal line or in the trapezoid behind the net. Now, there's a lot of detractors to that. They say, well, we should let the goaltender go anywhere he wants. I kind of like it. I kind of like the fact that, there's less controversy for the referees, because every time a goalie would venture out of his net into the corner, as luck would have it, he would stumble or he would give the puck away, and then it was desperation mode, and he's scrambling trying to get back to his net, and invariably he gets knocked down, he hits somebody, something happens, and as a referee you've got to decide, well, we're going to call a penalty here. So it made it a lot easier for us going, the goalie just can't go there anymore. He goes behind his own net, plays the puck in that trapezoid, otherwise he gets a penalty.
What's interesting about that trapezoid, I think of guys like Marty, and I think of guys like Eddie Belfour. Eddie was out in the corners on a regular basis, seemed like he was out to lunch. I don't know. And of course, sometimes you see the unthinkable with the bad goal that happens from the bad pass. But I understand the trapezoid. I'm not a big fan of it because I want to see the goalie get out there and play it a little bit. I want to see him roam around the corners. And hey, look, sometimes they make mistakes out there in the corners. So be it. And I think they should be able to play it, but I'm just a fan. I've never played hockey. I can't skate, but I want to see chaos on the ice, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was just about to use a comparison. They say people only go to NASCAR to watch the crashes. Well, people only want to see goaltenders go into the corner for what the bad things that can happen. Nobody really cares about the goalie going into the corner and make a good play. It's just when the goalie roams out of that crease, get ready, buckle up, because nothing good ever comes out of it. So I think that's why people want to see him back in the corners. But I think a lot of GMs, to be quite honest, used to start shaking when they're, highly paid goaltender would venture into the corner with a forechecker bearing down on it. They'd be like, no, they'd be just as happy if he stays in his crease. A lot safer.
Yeah, unless, of course, that goalie is Billy Smith, right? Then all bets are off, or Ron Hextall, because something bad could happen to the person that approaches them.
Yeah, I'm not sure their game would translate quite as easily to today's game.
Right. They would basically be living in the box. They would have to go off for fighting just because. They'd actually cart them off. No, you're not going to serve this. We're going to bring in the backup goaltender because you just fight too much.
Yeah, it was, growing up watching Billy Smith, that was entertaining. And then I was there right at the tail end of Ron Hextall's career, and they really enjoyed getting involved in the play.
Well, once in a great while, we'll also see a goalie score a goal. Now, have you ever been on the ice when a goalie has scored?
I haven't. I have not. I've been in attendance at an American League game, watching the game when it happened. Never. I've had games where goalies have been credited with the goal, meaning they made the last guy to touch the puck. Team puts it in his own net, on a either last minute of play or delayed penalty type situation. But no, I've never seen a goalie score a goal live.
Yeah, I've only seen it on TV.
Really close. I've seen a couple of goal posts hit, but never in.
I've never seen it live for sure. I've seen it on TV. I've seen the goaltender hoist it over everybody. But that's hard to do with that big uncurved or non-curved waffle board.
Well, a lot of goaltenders now do have a fairly decent sized curve on their stick.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do, which makes it easier to shoot and pass. There's a bit of a detraction, I guess, if the paddles turn the other way. The toughest thing for the goaltenders trying to score a goal is most goalers are right-handed, so they hold the stick in the right hand, glove with the left, meaning they would naturally just get the puck, keep the blocker hand up top, and shoot the puck. But if you're a right-handed shot, that's a little different for them. They have to stop the puck and flip the stick around, basically put the catching glove up on the butt of the stick. Takes a millisecond longer. So if you're right-handed and you shoot left, you have an advantage there. And I mean, some of these guys kid around in practice, I'm sure. You know, when the practice is over, they just practice taking pucks and firing them down the ice, seeing how they can do it. But to do it in practice is a lot different than doing it in the heat of a game.
Yeah, I would imagine. But it's cool to see the goaltender get active and playing, and instead of just staying in that little painted crease. I mean, that's all fine and dandy. I understand what the role is, but I kind of like seeing the goaltenders doing something, because let's face it, when the puck lives in the offensive zone, I mean, the goaltender's out to lunch, right? Whatever, they could go to the bathroom, come back, and the play's still going on in the offensive end. You know, and so sometimes you wonder, are the heads really in the game, or are they not? I don't know. So I'll tell you what, we're going to come back here, in just a little bit, and Dave's going to tell us a little bit more about his experience when maybe if he was playing just in a pickup game of some of the things that he may have seen. I don't know. Maybe you could talk about that, or that fine Gibson hat that he's wearing, about, those wonderful axes that they make, just like the one I've got right back here, folks, that I cannot play. Everybody watching on TV, I'm terrible at guitar. Dave's probably better than I am at this. He can certainly skate better than me, but we'll be back here in just a few minutes on the Sports Circus with ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey, Dave Jackson, in just a few moments.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-296-1209. 800-296-1209. That's 800-296-1209.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thanks, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal here with Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey. We're talking hockey today. This segment is brought to you by, Dave Jackson and ESPN Hockey. Dave, tell everybody again what you do, when you do it, and how you do it.
Well, 32 years as a referee in pro hockey, mostly in the NHL. And now I'm the rules analyst on ESPN Hockey. You can see me on Linear, ESPN, ABC, ESPN Plus. It's ESPN Plus, great streaming. You can sign up. Well over 1,200 games. Some produced by us, some are the local broadcasts, but you get it all. And the ones produced by us, any controversy, you get to see me. I'll explain the rules to you and hopefully increase your knowledge of the game and increase your enjoyment.
That's all good stuff. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcoming everybody that may be listening in Southern California, right here in Las Vegas, all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, WDJY 99.1 FM, WAUD over in Auburn, Alabama, even down in Southwest Florida, WBGY, Naples, Marco Island. Dave, those are great places. Lots of great places. If you have one of those nice, big, 105-foot Viking yachts, something like this, right? It's kind of a great place to go if you're into maybe fishing or yachting or doing whatever it is that you do. So welcome back to everybody also on television and even everybody streaming right here on Facebook. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow this show on pick your favorite social media platform. So Dave and I were talking goalies and goalie activity in the last segment. I want to kind of put a bow on that and ask you about the games that you've officiated when you've seen maybe a game completely go sideways, maybe a team's up 5-0. Now, I've been to one of these before, and it's almost as if the goalie's on cruise control late in the third, and you're thinking, well, we're already looking forward to the next game. And then suddenly the wheels come off, and now you have a 5-5 game. What happens? What's the dynamic? How does that even happen? Is it just the idea that, hey, one big hit could turn everything around? What is it, Dave?
Well, first off, I'm going to hope to say the referees had nothing to do with it because, a 5-0 game turning into a 5-5 late in the third, you're just hoping it wasn't a bad call or a missed call that sort of started the wheels in motion. But usually what happens is a team will score a goal and it'll be, well, there's one goal. Okay, no big deal. We're still in command. And then they'll score a second goal. And now it's like, wow, 5-2. Like, let's check out. And I think teams just build on that momentum. And if the team that had the lead is a team that's fragile, let's say they're not really a team with a winning record and they're uncharacteristically winning 5-0 at this point, then they start having self-doubt. They start, oh no, here it comes again. We fought it off long enough, but it's starting again. It's coming at us. And that's when they start gripping their sticks a little tighter. And instead of just saying, hey, play the way we've been playing for 45, 50 minutes and just try and score another goal, no, all of a sudden they're back in, kitty bar the door type thing, and they're in defensive mode and letting those doubts creep in. And let's face it, maybe the goaltender feels the same way. And he's like, wow, I really would have liked one of those goals back. But instead of moving on and saying, I'm going to just forget about that and move on, gets in his head, and then before you know it, it's 5-0. And as a referee, that's when you really have to make sure you're focused. Yeah, you can't miss something late in the game like that. You don't want to be blamed. You don't want your fingerprints over any of that. Team's going to come back from 5 goals down. Well, you make sure that they do it honestly, and they give there's no onus on the referee, no focus on unless there needs to be. Now, obviously, you're paid to do a job, so if you got to lay down the hammer, you lay down the hammer, but you just don't want to miss anything. There's no cruise control for the referees, especially when a team is mounting a comeback.
Yeah, Dave, I saw one of those at the old Chicago Stadium. Actually, no, strike that. It was after United Center was built. Anyway, it was with Chicago and Detroit. Of course, that's kind of a fun rivalry. And sitting in the seats, of course, rooting for my hometown, beloved Blackhawks. Well, it happened. It happens that Detroit was up 5-0, and this was the game actually I had in mind. They were up 5-0 with about maybe 7 minutes left in the game. People are starting to file out and this and that. And then there was an open ice hit. I'm going to get into the open ice hits in a moment. And it happened that open ice hit, it happened to spawn something within the team. Hawks got a goal. They got another goal. They got another goal. With 2 minutes left, now we got a 5-5 game just out of nowhere. And the game ended up in a 5-5 tie back then. But the excitement had built off of just simply an open ice hit. And that's the reason I asked about that. How important is it? And what turns a team around, especially when you've got one team that maybe they have good goaltending, but they have mediocre defense in front of them. I mean, I always argue with people that, look, you could have a great goaltender, but if you don't have anybody in front of them, that goaltender turns into mediocrity just like that. Is that true?
I don't think a goaltender turns into mediocrity. I think you get to a certain point where a certain amount of shots you can absorb. And just your focus and your reflexes and it's hard. The equipment's heavy. You're out there for 60 minutes. You're not getting a break. I think fatigue sets in. And when fatigue sets in, we all know what happens when fatigue sets in. It affects you mentally. It affects your reaction time. And I just think that if a goaltender doesn't get support from his defense, you're going to start seeing cracks. And that doesn't make him a mediocre goaltender. It just means fatigue has set in.
Right. And what I meant by that was his numbers. They appear mediocre because the guy, let's face it, he's hung out to dry. You've got odd man rush after odd man rush against him. Yeah. And what if, and on top of it, a lot of people don't seem to realize that there are defensemen that are their own worst enemy because they'll screen their own goalie. And the goalie's just stuck with a glove up in the air and the puck ends up going the other direction because they don't know what to do.
Yeah, you see so much. The game has changed so much. When I started, you always had a winger out covering the point, right? And the defenseman couldn't get the shot away. They had to try and move it inside into the crease. And now the teams have gone more to clogging up the house in the middle. 5 guys sort of in the slot there. So defensemen are drifting shots, but more often than not they don't because they know it won't get through. You got players blocking shots, and I know coaches like Tortorella. Big proponent of blocking shots. Take the strain off the workload off your goaltender. Block those shots. But if you're going to block a shot, you got to fully commit to it. Don't be sticking 1 foot out or 1 stick out because you're probably going to deflect it, and your goaltender's going to say, like, listen, man, if you're not going to commit to it, then just get out of the way and let me see the puck. Right? So.
Yeah, and we've had those conversations here on this program with former goaltenders. I had that conversation with Grant Fuhr, had it with even Dominic Roussel, and other goaltenders. And it always come back to, look, either commit, like you said, or get out of the way so I could see it because I can't stop what I can't see.
Exactly. I remember I wasn't a big fan, probably why I never played any higher than junior B. But I was a defenseman, and crappy equipment back then in the 70s, early 80s. And, guy would wind up for a slap shot. I'd go down to block it, but in the back of my head, I was sort of playing my angles to probably not going to hit me.
Right. Please don't hit me. Because, look, you've got all this padding on, even a goaltender. The bigger question is with the goaltender is how much pain do they feel? Because there are soft spots in that equipment they're wearing. And what are the spots that hurt the most? Obviously, when it's on the back of their legs or something like that. But what about facing the puck? Where's the weak spot for the goaltender, pain-wise?
Sure. Well, it's changed a lot. From when you were growing up, you look at guys like Tony Esposito and, Jerry Cheevers and those guys. Their equipment was atrocious compared to today's standards. Now, mind you, we didn't have graphite sticks and they weren't shooting the puck 100 miles an hour, but there was a lot of exposed areas. And even the areas that were padded, it still hurt. It left a lump, right? Mm-hmm. Today, the goalies I've talked to, their padding is so good that as long as they're square to the shot, you're probably not going to hurt them. Now, that being said, you're always vulnerable when it gets you in the groin area, no matter how well you're padded. And I would say anywhere in the head, those masks are fantastic. They're great, and they're designed to disperse energy. In fact, people are always saying, well, why does the goalie's helmet come off when he gets hit with a puck? Well, if you watch it in super slow-mo where you can go frame by frame, instant that puck hits the mask, you'll see the mask actually expand. and the buckles will pop off. It's really cool to watch.
Wow.
If you're able to watch it frame by frame, goalie gets hit with a slap shot, you'll see the shape of the mask actually change its shape, and it causes the buckles to pop off. So it disperses the energy. It's designed that way. But you're still going to have your bell rung. I mean, that's a 100-mile-an-hour puck hitting you. And I would also say probably anywhere up where the pads don't cover up here. So the mask will come down and cover your throat. But, I mean, you're still vulnerable. You get a puck up in this area here, it's going to hurt you. But, I mean, I couldn't be a goaltender. I'm not brave enough. But these guys they just face the puck and they don't flinch. Kudos to them.
Yeah, and, you think of that pain disbursement. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you could still be wearing Kevlar. But if somebody shoots at you, you are going to feel it. I don't care how thick the Kevlar is. At the end of the day, it's going to hurt. And I would imagine even a guy back in the day like Al McGinnis shooting with that twig, I mean, he could still bring it at 100 miles an hour with less protection. That had to be a painful experience.
Well, you look at the players, too. I mean, the players that block these shots, they're not padded the way goalies are. I mean, they get it, lower abdomen. They get it in the ankles, around the skate, the boot of the skate. That's where you get broken feet, and a lot of players wear those plastic protection around their skate.
Right.
And they do the same thing. You still feel it, but it disperses the energy.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, folks, this is really good conversation on the goalies because nobody really talks about the goaltending. But guess what? In the next segment, we're going to move on past the goaltending, and we're going to see what happens when people shoot and score and celebrate and called nicknames that maybe by the announcers or by the fans, the player's like, what? Who said that? Anyway, back here in a few with Dave Jackson. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
My favorite one had to do with the Green Bay Packers. And I love the fact that they dealt off Ty Montgomery because of a blown assignment. Green Bay isn't Green Bay unless they have a good running game. Then they can win 10 Super Bowls. The fact is, you don't have a running game. You've got 70% passing, and that's not where Aaron Rodgers needs to be. He needs to be in a position where he's got a running game to offset the passing game and so forth. I like the move. Green Bay didn't have a running game anyway, so all they're doing is saying, we're going to get rid of you because you don't follow instructions.
Well, he made one of the most boneheaded plays I've ever seen. There's 2 minutes and 5 seconds on the clock. They traded him on Tuesday.
They should have cut him on Sunday night.
He shouldn't have been on the plane back to Green Bay.
Right, they should have made him walk back to Green Bay.
No, it was a terrible play. Now, he's not a stupid guy. He went to Stanford. He's not a dumb guy.
He's not a dumb guy, but he doesn't follow instructions.
He made a terrible play.
The fact is he didn't follow instructions. And you say he's not a dumb guy. His own agenda he put ahead of his team.
I agree.
Thus, he is a dumb guy. Right or wrong?
Wrong. He just got selfish. You're not going to convince me that a guy from Stanford's a dum-dum.
No!
This is Sidney Justin from the Miracles.
So you heard yesterday's show at Roy Firestone. Did you hear a little clip about him going into the office where Smokey was at? And that was really good material, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really funny, man.
Yeah, and then you heard him.
I thought it was hilarious. It was cool, though. It was cool. Really cool story, man. I enjoyed listening to that.
Right, and then he gave a couple of bars. Can you give us a couple of more from Ooh Baby Baby? And let's see if you could do it better than Roy Firestone. Come on, man!
All right, you know what? Why not? I did you wrong. My heart went out to play. But in the game, I lost you. What a price to pay. Hey, I'm crying. Ooh, baby, baby. How's that, man?
That's
Is that okay? Is that good enough?
That's incredible.
That's fantastic.
You know why? Because that's what you do. You're in the incredible business, Sid. That's awesome. Yes! Only on the Sports Circus. You're going to get sports? You get music?
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, we're here with Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey. Of course, you heard it on the promo, coming right back from break. And this way, Dave gets a chance to hear himself. And welcome back, Dave, and everybody else on television, radio, streaming. You know who you are. And we're going to get right back into it here, talking hockey. And I mentioned in the last segment about maybe that skating with your head up thing, and maybe somebody scores, whatever, and then there are these nicknames. We're going to get to the punishment maybe that's doled out for not skating with your head up afterwards. But let me ask you this whole nickname thing. And I hear this from, pick your favorite person on TV. Sometimes it sounds okay. Sometimes I scratch my head. I'm like, I don't get it. How do you think the players feel? I mean, really, not the political answer. How do the players take that? Maybe if somebody calls, I don't know, hypothetically, Patrick Kane, hey, Kaner, they see him out on the street, or Jonathan Taze, hey, Taser, or whatever. I'm just using these as examples, right? What do you think about non-players having their, I don't know, having their way of communicating with these players in a player way? Because I know just on a team, on a pro team, you're in a dugout, my example for baseball. You hear certain things and you react to it. You're like, hey, someone's calling me, whatever. But then you hear it from the crowd, that kind of thing. And what do you think about all that?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because my son is an NHL, American League NHL linesman, minor league contract. He works between both leagues. And he went to training camp, NHL training camp, for his first time a year and a half ago. And obviously I gave him advice and what to do and not to do, how to act. And the first thing I told him, well, one of the biggest things was, do not automatically assume you start using guys' nicknames. You've heard me talk about these guys my whole career. Yeah, I was refereeing the NHL before he was born. So he was born into the referee fraternity. And he knows all these guys by their nicknames. And I said, just because you know them by their nickname, address them by their name. And if they tell you, hey, no, if it's Joe Smith, call him Joe. Introduce yourself. And if he says, hey, call me Smitty, then go ahead and call him Smitty. But until that point, call him by his first name. It's just respect. You haven't earned the right to call him by his nickname yet. And take that one step further. As a referee, I never used players' nicknames. I didn't feel these nicknames. I mean, I shouldn't say never. If a guy's name is Jones, I might say Jonesy. But if there's nicknames that really aren't a derivative of their last name, it's not my place. I don't know the genesis of that nickname. I don't know why or how it was given to him. And I'm not part of that close-knit fraternity of the teammates. It's not my prerogative, I don't think, to call them by their nickname, because then they look at you and go, who are you to call me by that? And, my friends call me by that, and I felt that as an authority figure in the ice, it's not my job to buddy up with these players and use their nicknames and try and be their pal. I call them by their first name usually. I make an effort to learn players' first names, and I call them by their first name. And that's just a sign of respect, in my opinion.
I have to agree, because there are people that I see on television, and maybe they do the pregame intermission reports and postgame or whatever, and these are just people that stepped into the booth. And I think about, I'm just giving an example of what I watch, for example, on TV. I'm going back to my beloved Blackhawks, and I see their play-by-play guy, a new guy, Pat Foley, for years and years. One of the best announcers I've ever heard, Pat Foley. And of course, Pat always gets a nice round of applause, because Pat was one of those guys. But anyway, so now Darren Pang does the color commentating for the Blackhawks now. Of course, Darren Pang does it for pick your favorite TV network as well. I think he works for the NHL network too. I forget. But anyway, so the play-by-play guy, I think his name is Chris Vosters. Nobody knows who this guy is. He did college sports, whatever. It's a decent guy, whatever. But for him, or even for Chris Chelios' daughter, Kaylee, for them to, hey, Panger, this, that, and the other, it's like, well, wait a minute. When did this happen? Did I miss something here? Do you go right from college sports to, hey, Panger, or whatever it is? And what about the players? And these are things that I think about. And I know the fans get kind of caught up in stuff like that, so be it. But at what point, I always tell people, look, if Joe introduces himself as Joe, then he is Joe. If he says, hi, my name is Jonesy, nice to meet you, Jonesy, whatever. Like what you said, I always talk to people in the way that they introduce themselves to me. And I never could understand how Jonathan Marchessault has become Marshy to the balance of the human race. I don't understand this.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think it's about familiarity as well. I mean, Kaylee Chelios probably has earned the right to do that. She's been around long enough with the team and probably in the locker rooms with her dad, meeting these people and calling them that. So, but I do understand what you're saying. I just think, and like I said, I think calling a player by a derivative of his last name is not as bad as calling him, if like I said earlier, if the guy's name is Jones and you call him Jonesy, that's not taking as big a liberty as if he has just a nickname that has nothing to do with his last name. And you really have no idea how that nickname came about. Only his close circle of friends know that nickname. That, I think, is kind of off limits unless the guy tells you, hey, call me by that name.
Do you have an example?
Wayne Bonney worked for us, longtime linesman. He was did a bunch of Stanley Cup finals, and his nickname was Buckwheat. And no idea where he got the name from. I found out later in years where to get the name from, but if you didn't know him, you call him Wayne. Right? Right. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember when I first started talking to Paul Dvorsky years ago, he had said, no, just call me Devo. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, to me, he's been Devo for a very long time, but for people that just meet him, it's like, well, hi, I would say, hey, meet Paul or something like this, because I couldn't really do that. I don't want to extend that because I was granted that. That doesn't mean that I have the assignment rights, so to say. Right.
We had a funny story more recently. Recently retired linesman Scott Driscoll, great friend of mine, a bear of a man, like a big man, strong, powerful. And his first year at training camp back in, I'm going to say late 80s, he was roommates with Ron Asselstein. And you remember that name. He did a bunch of games in the old Chicago Stadium. And Ron Asselstein was also a bear of a man, was a biker before he was a linesman. And because of his size and he got a lot of hair on his chest, you get the nickname Bear. So the first year at training camp, Scott Driscoll got roomed with Bear. And he was the junior guy in the room, and they were built the same way, so his nickname became Cubby. And he was known as Cubby throughout his whole career. In fact, Ray Ferraro has a funny story about that as a player on the ice, but that's for another day. But Cubby, if you didn't know or how that name originated, you shouldn't probably call him Cubby. You call him Scott or Mr. Driscoll, unless he says to you, call me Cubby. And I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. And it may sound like I'm beating this to a pulp, but folks, sometimes it's okay. And I think a lot of times the players or those people, whether it's a referee or a coach or whatnot, they're just being very gracious and they're just humoring you. But it doesn't give you the right because you don't know these people. And I'm sorry. They say, well, you're a stickler on this and that. No, I'm not a stickler on it. It's just a respect thing. And I think that people need to show respect. It's kind of like, look, hey, Dave, could you sign this puck for me or something like that, right? Hey, so we've got a puck, right? Can you sign the puck for me because you've been doing this forever, whatever. But nowadays, we see this quite a bit where some people say, you know what? I can't sign it. You know why? Because you're going to turn right around and sell it and make a bunch of money. And so you're really just using me.
Well, not with my signature, you're not, but I see what you're saying.
Right. But you know what I'm saying, though. I mean, people, by end of day, this is what happens. So people say, well, how come the players they're this particular way or whatever? They don't want to talk. Well, it's because they know you're going to try to make money. Here's a selfie or here's this. I'm going to sell the picture for whatever money. And it's gotten to the point where super fans have essentially, I won't say fully, but they have largely ruined the experience for young kids. Maybe, hey, could you sign this thing? No, because I know you're going to try to sell it for $1,000.
Yeah. And going back to nicknames, I just saw as an authority figure, I don't know you, Sal. I'm coming up in a game, and I'm never going to get in trouble if I address you by Sal. But I'm not going to call you Tuzz or Tuzzy or whatever, because I might get in trouble. You might look at me sideways and go, "Who are you?" So I always take the path of least resistance in that case. Address you by Sal. If you tell me to call you something else, going forward, I will.
That's right. And you know what? That is a very good point. And thank you for that, because some people say, hey, Tuzz, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. I mean, whether it was playing ball or whether it's just, the guys in the neighborhood, hey, yo, that kind of stuff. Right? But those are the people that you expect to hear from, not from the general public. So yes, I did beat it to a pulp. Sorry, folks. It's a big deal. Don't call these people nicknames that you don't really know, because they'll look at you like, well, who the heck are you? I don't know you. Anyway, back here in just a few minutes with Dave Jackson. And Dave, do you have a nickname? Nah, just play it anyway. Back here with Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey. Back here in just a few minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. That's 800-320-2751.
If you're tired of the fake news and tired of all the left-wing BS and agendas out there, if you want to do your right part to clean out the swamps and hit the lefties where it hurts, their pocketbook, we all know the president and his cronies hired thousands more IRS employees and agents. Now that's not very American. There's a way to fight back. Fellow conservatives out there, call American Tax Relief. They can help you pay less to the IRS. Don't you give a penny more to spend to the left-wing agendas. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes or haven't filed your taxes in years, call my friends at American Tax Relief. They'll give you a 100% free introduction to their program, and trust me, they're on the right side of your freedom. Pay the IRS less. Call now.
800-958-2157. 800-958-2157. That's 800-958-2157. Paid for by the Tax Doctor.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196. Paid for by Legal Alert Line.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Al Bubba Baker, quarterback breaker and the rib maker.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live in Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our press releases. We've got 2 of them coming up. Can't tell you about them just yet. In fact, we just gave you a little hint right before this segment started. Also, make sure you check out the partners. Lots of great partners over there as well. And make sure you listen to our pre-recorded, actually our recorded shows, I should say. They're on all the podcast platforms. We don't do a podcast, but they're on all those recorded show platforms, right? From Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Audible, whatever. We're there. You can't get away from us. All right. Also, back here with Dave Jackson, rules analyst for ESPN Hockey. And we're talking about penalties, what the name changes were, and the between segments, but what and also nicknames in the last segment. But I want to talk, Dave, about real quickly. I know you got to go. I want to mention something about open ice hits and the importance. And I mentioned this in the very first segment. We're going to get into this. Maybe the goal scorers coming in, and we'll take Connor Bedard, for example, coming in from the Blackhawks, doesn't have his head up, and he gets drilled. But it was a clean hit. What is your thought on skating not with your head up?
Well, you should always skate with your head up. And as a referee, that's easy to say because we're not being lined up by 200-pound defensemen trying to take us through the glass. But if I could really quickly go back to our last segment on nicknames, because your intro there by Mr. Baker, he's the quarterback breaker and the rib maker. Is that a nickname?
Yes, Al Bubba Baker. As a matter of fact, and
Bubba's the nickname.
Bubba's
a nickname.
Hey, Bubba's a big fan of yours, by the way, too.
The quarterback breaker, rib maker. That's sort of like a slogan, I guess. I should be so lucky. My name doesn't rhyme with any of that kind of stuff, or I could have a slogan going there.
Yeah, well, by the way, Bubba is a big fan of Dave Jackson. All right, nice round of applause for Dave Jackson. Yes! and that's a large, imposing human. But imagine a guy like Brendan Smith, hitting Connor Bedard. It was a clean hit. Yeah, Connor got a busted jaw, whatever. But folks, at the end of the day, you got to skate with your head up because, look, the referee likely is not going to call the penalty on a clean hit. Now, would you?
No, exactly. And it really unfortunate because Connor Bedard, I think he's exceeded all expectations from when he was drafted. He got a bunch of goals, bunch of points. Seems like a great kid. Great attitude. I've listened to his interviews. He's very well spoken and kind of guy I think you're going to fit right into that marketplace in Chicago. Referees will call a penalty when you pick the head. When the head is the initial point of contact and the primary point of contact, meaning the guy's bent over, going this way, you come across, take none of his body, just his head. We want those hits out of the game. But the hit that was made by, it was Smith, I believe, on Bedard, what else could that defenseman do? He actually let up a little bit. He didn't elevate through it. He didn't leave his feet. He got right through the center core of the body, which is what you're taught to do. There was no attempt to inflict extra damage or pain. And I think probably the puck, it just sort of, banged off his skate. He looked down for that one quick second, and he's a smaller player. If he's 6'4", 6'5", there's probably no injury there. So it's just the nature of the game, and it's unfortunate. But what do you do? We could make the game a lot safer, but we'd also sacrifice taking out big body checks. And I think people enjoy the physicality of hockey, And so I really don't have an answer for you. That's the risk you take, I guess, playing, and you try and make it as safe as you can. You take away illegal hits. You take away players trying to hurt other players. But there's still a certain amount of element where big, clean, legal body checks are going to leave a mark sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and thinking about those big body checks, I think of guys like Steve Smith with a big hip check, right? And we don't really see much of that in hockey anymore. We don't see a lot of it. I think Drew Doughty still does it. I mean, Drew's one of those guys that I think every team needs a Drew Doughty. He's just one of those guys that if you open up the dictionary or whatever, you look under hockey, Drew's picture is there. Whether you like him or not, this guy is a gamer from top to bottom, and I think every team needs one of those.
He certainly is the gamer. One of my favorites, right down to the missing tooth and everything. He's a stereotypical hockey player. And you don't see a lot of hip checks anymore, I think, because the game's changed. I mean, positionally, how you defend, how you force guys outside, and it's a lot faster. I mean, those hip checks, they're great when they work, but if you only get a piece of the guy or miss them altogether, you've taken yourself right out of the play. And then you create an odd man scoring chance. So it's probably why you don't see them as much anymore.
And plus, you also see a lot of injuries come out of those, too. You see bad backs and all kinds of crazy things happen to those players that are throwing the hip checks, too, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think guys just play a little more. I think they play a little more within themselves. They manage the game a little better, maybe. They don't expose themselves as much and just try and separate the player from the puck, which, if you're a good skater and you can get the puck off the guy without destroying him, then making a big body check not only hurts the player who gets hit, but you take abuse yourself. Just ask football players. Those defensive guys or the linemen on either side, you're giving a hit and taking a hit, but there's an impact on your body when you give a hit.
Yeah, I mean,
especially in hockey, you're moving 20 miles an hour. It's a car crash
every time you hit somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was explained to me by Doug Plank, former Chicago Bears, really, really big hitter. In fact, by the way, speaking of hit, I know you got to sort of hit and run. You got to get out of here. So, Dave, always a pleasure having you on the Sports Circus, yes? And we're going to look forward to you coming back onto the show again real soon with some good insight. And where can everybody find you, and what's your next gig?
Well, tomorrow night, ESPN Plus, we've got two big games, early game in Tampa, a late game in LA. Any kind of rules controversy, hopefully you'll see me. I'll explain the rule for you. And you can catch me on Twitter or the new X at ESPN Ref NHL. Be happy to answer all your questions.
All right, that was Dave Jackson. And Dave, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. And, of course, Dave is one of those guys that we always want to make sure that we get all the insight we can from him, and we certainly appreciate him joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and let Dave sign off, and we're going to carry on here. And at the end of the day, folks, we have to think about all the input that we got from Dave when it came to, from open ice hits to everything else. Look, there's so much happening on the ice. And the one thing that we really don't know is, what's going to happen after the play? What's going to happen in the locker room? What's going to happen to the player when they're sitting in an ice tub, or maybe they're out for, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And we saw that with Connor Bedard. The reason we talked about that, because Connor was out, technically still out. He's skating again, but 6 to 8 weeks with a shattered jaw from a very clean hit from Brendan Smith. And like he said, look, Brendan did not leave his feet and try to launch him into the fifth row or anything like that. It had nothing to do with that. But what we saw was a clean hit. Now, maybe if we saw that 25 years ago, there'd be a little bit more intent because there's more latitude in what happens on the ice back then. Now the game is protecting the skill guys, which is fine. They protected them a little bit. Like Wayne Gretzky got plenty of protection. In fact, it was almost like the Gretzky rules. You couldn't touch this guy. So it was kind of like the golden boy. I don't know. Someday we may bring Wayne on the show and we could talk a little bit about special rules, right? People say, well, Michael Jordan got special rules too, the Jordan rules. Well, listen, folks, if you watched, and I'm digressing here completely from hockey into basketball. If you watched Michael Jordan play, more particularly for the first 5, 6, 7 years of his career, Michael Jordan got beat up, hit, knocked down. I mean, when I say beat up, he didn't physically get into fist fight beat up, but on the court, especially playing the Detroit Pistons. I mean, it was ugly, from Dennis Rodman throwing him down or whatever, not necessarily picking him up and throwing him down, but knocking him down, to Bill Laimbeer, to all those guys. I mean, they all had a very physical plan for Michael Jordan. That was keep him away from the basket. In the same way, Wayne Gretzky, well, let's face it, Wayne got pushed around a little bit early in his career, but he was kind of a smaller guy, so he didn't really go in front of the net too terribly often and pick up the loose change and bang it home. Wayne just a pure skill shooter, and the guy just had mad skills. And then, of course, it got bigger and better as far as his skills from behind the nets, setting everybody up, from Yari Curry to Mark Messier, you name it, he's done it. Even Kevin Lowe. I mean, look, certain players have certain skill sets, but in today's time, the little guys in hockey, they're not necessarily targeted, but you've got the big guys, the goons, that will go and hit them and knock them down. And then you'll see the goon from the offensive team, from the guy that got knocked down. You'll see the big goon, and then a big goon will fight, and then all hell breaks loose. And maybe you might see 5 fights going off at one time. And then if you're lucky, you'll see the goalies skate to center ice, and then they'll square off. I mean, those are the best ones. There's scores and scores of videos of goaltenders squaring off in fights. These are great hockey moments, and maybe not for the snowflake crowd today that, oh, well, it's violent. And stop watching hockey if you're going to worry about violence. Because really, think about hockey in the first place, folks. What do we have? We've got a deadly weapon in this wonderful puck right here. I'm showing on television right here. This is an official NHL puck right here. All right. And then what do you have? So it's a deadly weapon. It's going 100 miles an hour or whatever off the blade of somebody's stick. Then the goalies, they can only protect themselves so much. But remember, each player has what? Deadly weapons on their feet, right? So you've got super sharp blades on their feet. Right? And we saw a player have a neck injury. I think a player died because they got their neck slashed. The jugular vein, I think, was slashed inadvertently in a game over in Europe. Right? So now you've got more deadly weapons. Oh, by the way, they're carrying a stick in which to hit this wonderful puck. And at the same time, folks, the stick is now made of graphite. That is a deadly weapon. Right? So now we've got 4 actually. You got the puck, 2 skates, and a stick. But each player has at least 3 of those. And they're going at 20 odd miles an hour, whatever the hell, top speed. Could be more than that, I don't know. And what are they trying to do? They're basically playing kill the guy with the puck. So they're trying to check that player with the puck into the 5th row through the glass. Right? So you got a lot going on here, folks. Hockey is clearly the most difficult sport to play. And I mean by a long shot. It is clearly the most difficult, but the hardest thing to do in all of sports is to do what? Hit a baseball. How do you like that? All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. A big thanks for Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey, joining us today. And also everybody else joining us right there on your favorite station. And we're going to see you in about 23 hours. So sit tight. Grab some popcorn. In about 23 hours, we're going to do this all over again. Until then, so long, everyone.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196. Paid for by Legal Alert Line.